We are Sports Take. Let's hit the like button if we could, friends. We appreciate it. That's Derek. I'm Rob. We're hanging out with you on this Thursday as we count down.
Rob.
Hi, Derek. Hi. I'm just happy to see you, man. Hi.
It's Thursday, baby. Thursday night football, baby.
Oh, we're going to get to your game. Calm down. We're going to get to your game. I know Derek's got a little extra pep in his step today because his Packers are and they're pretty well. They're relatively healthy. They're not fully healthy, but they're relatively healthy. Healthier than they've been. Fair? Healthier?
That's fair. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
I like this game tonight, though. This is going to be one. I haven't been excited for a Thursday night game, really, other than the first one. But I'm really excited for this one. This is going to be a good one. We'll get into it. All right. There's been a lot.
Hey, look, Eagles fans said, don't bandwagon now, D-Gun. You're right. I'm not. I'm still proceeding with caution. Rob Ellis has been more of a cheerleader for the green and gold than I have, and I'm ashamed to admit it. But as I told you before the season, this is a season where my emotions will be in check the entire season because I have no expectations of what they're going to do. Yeah. You have been adamant about you picked them as one of your 7 playoff teams.
I did. I think they win the division. And
a lot of people have picked them as one of 7 playoff teams. I can't see it yet. I'm sorry. My vision is narrow.
I have 2 unique picks, Derek. I went with Green Bay to win the North, and I went with Atlanta to win the South. I think most people had New Orleans.
You're right. And I picked New Orleans, and I'm sticking with New Orleans. After watching what Detroit just did to Atlanta, I'm sticking with New Orleans, even though New Orleans' offense is not up to speed yet.
No, I want to see New Orleans all the way, all the parts there. Kamara coming back, Carr, you can't really judge him this week. If he plays, he's going to be pretty banged up. But when everybody's healthy and they get rolling, I'm going to be curious. All right. We've talked a lot about the Tush-Push. I've ranted about the Tush-Push. I think it was Monday. I kind of lost my mind a little bit, or Tuesday. I don't know what day it was, screaming about it. But I personally, it drives me crazy because I think a lot of people just don't like it because it isn't pretty. It's not aesthetically pleasing, and that kind of stuff drives me nuts. But so I want you to just lay out a couple different things here from what we've heard. All right. So one side of the fence. Let me give you J.J. Watt, Derek. Recently retired, now doing a lot of media stuff, CBS and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
All right. So he tweeted this out about 19 hours ago. And he said, quote, lots of talk about the Tush-Push. And in parentheses, ridiculous name, by the way. Now, people have taken to calling it the brotherly shove. Okay.
I like that better than Tush-Push.
I don't mind that. But he says, unpopular opinion. If they weren't allowed to push from behind, the Eagles would still be just as successful at quarterback sneaks. Yes, it helps, but the push isn't the reason it's successful. The O-line and Jalen are. Okay, so let's start with that premise. So this is coming from a future Hall of Famer, a guy who played on the defensive side, who could easily be a hater of it because he's not an offensive player, saying, cry all you want, but this would still work even if Dallas Goedert wasn't pushing him from behind. So let's start there. I concur. You have a guy, I know we hear this all the time, but you have a quarterback who's as strong in the lower half as anybody in the league. 600 pounds squatting and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
You have a phenomenal offensive line. In particular, your center, Kelsey, and your guards are a huge piece of this thing.
Yep.
I truly believe even if the push element was not included, if it was just an old-fashioned sneak, I'm not saying they would have the exact same success, but pretty close. Where are you on this? Because I want to give you Chris Sims, who's a jackass. I'll give you him in a second, but tell me what you think.
I've gone on record a number of times saying, number one, I sit there and chuckle when I watch it because it's unstoppable. It's an unstoppable play at this point, at this juncture. I am not going to argue with the likes of a future Hall of Famer, J.J. Watt, because what he says is basically true. But there have been times when I've seen, when it's just a straight quarterback sneak, certain defensive fronts can stand a quarterback up and, keep him from getting that first down. But I've been on record, and I've said this a number of times this year. My biggest concern with this thing is there's going to be a defensive player. As you see it now, look at how many defensive players dive over the top and try to grab Jalen and hold him up just long enough so somebody else can come barreling in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd hate to see where a safety or a linebacker that's trying to shoot the gap, because if you really watch it, most times Jalen Hurts is not going straight ahead when he does this dive. He finds the soft spot on the line and he leans that way and gets that extra push with his tremendous lower strength.
Yep.
But on the other side, you got some guys that are taking 2 or 3 steps and lowering their helmets and their shoulder pads, trying to catch him head on. And my biggest concern is somebody's going to catch him right on the crown of the helmet, and we're going to be talking about vertebrae or neck injuries.
Yep.
It's coming. I mean, when you think about some of these safeties like Minkah Fitzpatrick and some of these dudes, or some of these linebackers who have these techniques of trying to get leveraged, and you know they discuss this in meetings. Okay, here's what we try to do to stand them up and give somebody else an opportunity. There's something fluke that could happen, and it's great because your team is doing it, and you love to see it because it's unstoppable. And then all of a sudden, if something happens to Jalen where he has nerve damage in the shoulder or stinger or something like that, it keeps him out of games, people are going to be crying foul because of the way in which he was attacked trying to prevent it. And the other aspect of it I don't like, which we saw in this past game, was you saw the one touchdown he dove for. You see Dallas Goedert grab him like a bulldog in a rodeo and drag him across the goal line. That shouldn't be allowed. I thought Ike Reese brought up a great point. Ike Reese hates this tush-push thing. He brought it up on his show WIP yesterday. I happened to be listening in. And he's talking from a defensive perspective. If that's the case, why are defensive players allowed to push, especially on extra points and field goals? That's a penalty. Or remember when it was allowed, they cut this out real quick. When a defender behind the line of scrimmage was able to jump on the top of a back.
Leverage. Yeah.
And jump over to try to block an extra point of field goal. They stopped that as well.
Well, okay, so a couple things on the back end of that. The leverage thing was actually done as a safety measure for those defenders and the other team. Like, do you feel it's a safety measure if Dallas Goedert's pushing Hurts? For the opposition, I don't.
No. But I think it should not be allowed. You should not be able. If you're going to push, that's one. You can't physically just grab the dude like a football and throw him over the goal.
I'll buy the grab thing. I think that's fair.
Come on, man.
As far as the push part of it goes, like, I keep getting back to. I hear you with the injury thing, and that's real. I'm not disputing that, but that's every play. But the biggest thing I would say is, I hate to simplify this, but stop it. Don't let them get in a 4th and 1 or a 3rd.
I agree.
Or stop them. Derek, I guarantee you, they get stopped 2 times in a row with the tush-push. They won't be doing the tush-push again.
No,
it's a lot of whining, and I don't mean you. It's a lot of whining and crying.
I think it'll always be a part of the Eagles' repertoire. I think they will continue to use it. I think these people like, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, okay. Wait until the player gets hurt, and then we'll see how these people start crying about, he hit him illegally and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm Rob, did you not hear me? I'm not saying you, but in general.
I know what you mean.
Did you not hear me just say, I think it's funny because, hey, you know what? And didn't you hear me say, haven't you heard me go on record saying, hey, instead of whining about it, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. You don't like it? Stop it. Find a way to stop it. But I'm saying there is a possibility that somebody's going to go flying over the top, helmet or shoulder, and catch him on top of him. That possibility does exist.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
There is the injury risk. There's no doubt about that. So, well, speaking of that, Derek, so Chris Sims, who does the show, who's on Pro Football Talk with Mike Florio at NBC Sports, I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but the basic gist of it is, if I was a defensive coordinator, I would tell my guys to go headhunting. I would try and take him out. I would try to kill the quarterback. That's what I would tell my people to do. Look, I understand. Look, we all know behind closed doors that stuff gets said and stuff gets done. And
you better believe it does.
But I think it's pretty dirty stuff for Chris Sims to be throwing that out there. I don't know, man. I don't personally like it. Whenever you get it, I think he crosses the line with some of the stuff that he does.
I do too. But I heard the clip, and Florio quickly tried to
walk it back. Like, that's not us. Chris doesn't even mean, like, he starts talking for Chris. Like, Mike, he said it.
Florio caught it right away. Like, hold up. And then Chris tried to back it. Well, what I'm saying is, you already put it out there. But you know what, Rob?
Yeah.
Defensive coordinators are talking to their players about this stuff.
I'm not saying it isn't true, but like the way he said it was.
You can't say that as an analyst. You can't come out and say that. There's no question about it. But because he said it,
yeah.
I mean, basically, he's speaking facts in terms of what's being talked about behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
Every new concept that comes up in the NFL, what's the counterpoint?
Yep.
How do we diffuse it?
Yep.
How do we diffuse it? And especially in today's game of touch football, how do we legally try to diffuse this thing? What advantage could we possibly get? Right now, there is no advantage. It's unstoppable play.
Yeah.
And that's why I sit there and you see these guys trying to load up like rugby scrums on defense, and you still see the offensive line going this way. You never see the defensive line getting the push back this way.
That's the hard thing too, and that because it's so quick. It's the snap boom. It's the snap boom. It's you don't have time to make that big push that you would for another play that takes longer developing. It's such a quick developing play. It's snapped and he's gone. Snapped and he's gone. I mean, that's what makes it hard. It really does.
And go back to the last game, and Hugh Douglas and Ike both brought up a good point. On the one play, the 4th and 1,
yes,
you clearly see that Jalen's progress has stopped at a point, but the ref didn't blow the whistle, and he kept going and got the first down.
Exactly.
And they're saying, look what happens with the ball carrier. Once his progress is stopped, they quickly blow the whistle. And they're saying, why wasn't a whistle blown? It's some truth. So there's give and take in this. It's going to be refined. You know why? Because enough teams are going to cry about this enough. It's already been reviewed once during the owners' meetings this past spring.
Right.
It's going to be a topic of discussion again this offseason, And at some point, there's going to be some moderation to this thing. It's coming.
I agree. So I think it's a joke, but if you're asking my opinion, there are enough teams and enough momentum of teams whining about it.
Yep.
That it will get taken care of. Like Fitness Rebel brought it up earlier. Brady was highly successful at quarterback sneaks. He was one of the best during his Patriot days.
Yep.
Somehow that was okay. I mean, that wasn't as big an issue. It wasn't pretty looking. Peter King's whole thing is it doesn't look good. Like, really?
What is that supposed to mean?
I mean, come on.
What do you mean it doesn't look good?
I don't know.
What's that supposed to mean?
I think this is what drives me nuts about the argument in general. It's just basically, I don't like it because it just doesn't look good. Okay, well, neither does a kneel down. Are we going to get rid of that too?
Okay, I think here's the crux of the entire argument. Now, you bring up a good point about Brady. Brady rewrote the book on quarterback sneaks. He had a dominant offensive line in front of him. But with Brady, it was a matter of putting his skinny body one way or the other, just extending enough. Nobody was pushing him from behind. The argument is, with this one, you have running backs and other people that start to push from behind, as well as the offensive line. That's where the biggest criteria is.
That's where it differentiates. I agree.
Yeah, that's where it's going to be modified. Well, Rob, when the NFL talks about something 1 year in the offseason, all of a sudden we see moderations to it the next year. So I guarantee you, after this season, it's going to be back on the table again at the owners' meetings, and they're going to come out with this. We have now redefined what you can and cannot do in this situation. You know it's coming.
No question. No question. I agree with you. I think I'd be surprised if it's still around next year. I really would. It would surprise me if it's around next year because you're right. Last year started the momentum and it didn't get past. It got saved, but still. All right, let's talk about the youthful contributions this team's getting, Derek. And let's start with Jalen Carter. So against the Bucs, 4 pressures, half a sack, 2 quarterback hits, and a forced fumble. That's just the Bucs game. For the season, 5 tackles, sack and a half, 2 forced fumbles. That's in only 89 snaps, which is 33rd among all defensive tackles in terms of just snaps. He's got 12 QB hurries on the season, which is number 1 in the entire league among D tackles. And by the way, you know who's number 2 in hits? Fletcher Cox is number 2 in quarterback hits in all the NFL. But Carter has already become a dominant force here and limited action. When they start getting him, when Sirianni was asked about it yesterday, and he kind of said, we'd like to keep these guys fresh, but you never know. I think you're going to see him get the snaps are going to go like this, steadily climbing.
I agree.
What a force he can be if he's getting, 5-7 more snaps per game.
And you can't double him. He's already shown you can't. You see linemen trying to get guards and centers trying to double him. You can't double him. He's still splitting gaps. He's that strong. He's that quick. You can't single block him.
No.
We've already seen that in 3 games. I haven't seen an offensive lineman that can single block him yet. I've seen a lot of offensive linemen standing on one foot, bodies twisting, trying to just slow him down and clutching and grabbing to a certain degree. You can't stop him. You double team him. That's going to free somebody else to shoot a gap up.
Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, you got that big house next to him. You can't double team them both in your blocking schemes. What are you going to do with them? There's nothing you can do with them.
That's a really good point. It's not like there's some scrub next to him. You know what I mean? You got Fletcher Cox next to him, or you got Jordan Davis next to him, or Milton Williams. I mean, you got some really good players next to him.
Dude, this is phenomenal. You got these 2 kids doing this together. And I said it yesterday, they are forcing offensive coordinators to re-script how they attack with their running plays. There is nowhere to run up the middle. Nowhere. Even on delayed draws, there's nowhere to run up the middle. So what are you going to do? You're going to see more teams trying to run to the perimeter. And I believe once Nolan Smith is right, because I don't believe that shoulder's right. We saw a shot after the game of him with that shoulder bandaged up. Mm-hmm. But Nolan Smith's ability to shed blockers and get out in the flats, the speed he has is faster than most running backs, or not most, but a lot of running backs. Yeah. So now you're going to stretch out. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to run for these teams.
Yep. Mel, you're right. I mean, I don't know what you do. I like, honestly, you should be able to continue to make teams one-dimensional. And you think about this Washington team, if they're not having any luck on the ground and you're dropping Hal back a ton of times, that could really be a mess for them. I mean, considering he threw 4 picks last week and they're just not able to, whether it's his fault or the line's fault, they're not blocking it well. They've given up 19 sacks already.
Yep, 9 in the last game. You're forcing these teams to be one-dimensional, which plays right into this defense's hands, because you're getting consistent push up the middle now. And if you're not a quarterback that can just flat out run to the outside, you're in trouble, because the edge rushers are speed rushers also.
Yeah.
And once Hassan Reddick gets that thing off his hand and he's able to utilize his hands again, now quarterback's in real trouble.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, the great thing is it's not just Jalen Carter. It's Jordan Davis, who's playing really, really well for them. It's Reed Blankenship, who, you saw when he returned last week, what he was able to do. And you could throw Britton Covey in there, Derek. He's in his 2nd year. He's older than these guys. He did a mission, a Mormon mission, but he, 3 punt returns, 81 yards last week, long of 52. He's averaging 18.8 on the season, which is the 2nd best in the NFL this year. So he's having himself a good start.
Absolutely. I mean, this team right now, as we look at it, is in such a good place in terms of not just this season, but the foreseeable future for at least the next 2 years. Mm-hmm. Let's say next 2 years. At least for the next 2 years. We know Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey are in the twilight, Lane Johnson in the twilight of their careers. We understand that. But from what we've seen, Howie Roseman has already done a great job in terms of replenishing the stock, the covers, replenishing the covers. Now you're going to have to continuously build around that. That's understandable. But this team is in such a good place, and they have a great opportunity to continue that next year with 12 picks. But I don't, like I said many times before, I don't believe the Eagles will use all 12 picks and draft 12 players. I believe they will either use them somehow, some way in a trade, or will use them as barter to move up in a draft next year, right, to get position, to get the player they want for whatever position that may be, fully knowing that certain players who are up for contracts next year, they may have to let them go. And they're going to replenish the stocks. And then the younger players right now who are getting valuable playoff experience, valuable experience, game time right now, are going to be your veterans. This team's going to still be in a good place. You still got the franchise quarterback. You still have your receiving duo together for at least 3 more years. Your tight end's going nowhere.
They've done a really good job sort of making this over on the fly. And the key has been they've really hit. Now, they've done a nice job hitting high and also with undrafted free agents like Carter, Davis, Juergens, Dickerson, all these guys who were relatively high picks have all been money picks. But they've also had the undrafted guys work out. Eli Ricks and Covey and some of these other guys. It's a pretty nice combination they have working right now.
They have hit gold in terms of how they've structured this team over the last couple of seasons, including this season. they're in such a good place, light years ahead of most teams in the NFL. It's just phenomenal, and I expect, depending on what happens this season, already looking ahead, I expect them to be one of the top teams again in the NFC in 2024, just based on their personnel, the contract structured the way they have them right now, the terms of nucleus. Look, the D tackle position is set. It's set.
Yeah.
Even if Fletcher decides to bow out after this year, you still have the Dogs from Georgia and Milton Williams. You have 3 D tackles set already right now with this organization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got Josh Sweat on the outside. You got Reddick on the outside. And you got Nakobe Dean in the middle. And if you decide, you probably can bring back Zach Cunningham at a decent price that won't kill you financially.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the back end, even if you say goodbye to Terrell Edmonds, you got a nucleus of young players who have gotten some valuable experience this year, which benefits them tremendously for 2024.
I agree with you. They're in very good shape long term, this team. They are. There's no doubt. And especially when you consider the way that how he manages that cap, he's always 10 steps ahead with that. It's a very big deal. That's for sure. So there are a couple of things that you look at with this game, that are going to be very key in my estimation. Obviously is getting to the quarterback, but getting that passing game going. And this is where I'm going with this, Derek. Do you sense early they're going to try to establish the pass game just to get some rhythm? Or do you think we're just going to see, hey, let's run it until they show us they can stop the run? How do you think the Eagles go about this thing game plan wise early in this game?
I think they come out. It's easy to say, I think they come out and run, which is what I would do, especially if I'm Washington's defense and their coordinator. I'm sitting there watching the tape of all the gaping holes that they have run through, and I'm cheating people up. And if I'm Jalen Hurts and I step to the line of scrimmage and I see certain one-on-one coverage, knowing you have Kendall Fuller on one side and a rookie on the other side, if I have a certain matchup that I like, I'm gonna go play action right out of the gate. I'm gonna fake the run play and try to go up top and catch them sleeping right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. But if I'm a betting man, I think I hit them with the run first and see how they respond to it.
I would too. I want to set them up too. Like either I'm going to have great success on the ground, or they think I'm going to pound it on the ground and I hit them in the air. Either way, the thing that Washington also does, they've given up 19, but the flip side is I think they have 10 sacks. Their defense has 10 sacks. So they have done a nice job getting to the quarterback so far this year.
Oh, absolutely. My goodness. There's no question about it. And what do you do to keep that pass rush from getting to your franchise quarterback? Run it.
Yeah.
Run it. Make them play honest. Make them play. I go play action. Hey, they didn't even go RPO last week. You may have to bring back the RPO just to keep them honest a little bit more. But I would definitely incorporate more play action to stop that pass rush for just a second longer. Because let's face it, twice last year, that Washington defensive front without Chase Young gave the Eagles offensive lines problems in the pass game and the run game. Gave them problems.
Yep.
So how do you neutralize that? Hit him in the mouth running, and go play action to make that defensive line and those linebackers freeze for just a second longer, so that your pass weapons get that advantage for just a second longer, whether it's Goddard or the 2 guys on the outside or Swift coming out of the backfield.
Right.
All
right. Let's get a quick timeout. Let's come back and we will turn our sights to the NFL. Derek, a lot going on, including the game tonight. Joe Burrow, Derek Carr, Cooper Kupp, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara, Taylor Swift, Roquan Smith. We have the AFC and NFC players of the month that have been announced as well. So we'll hit all of those things when we come back. You do not want to miss any of this. 210 Brian Mitchell. So we'll talk to B. Mitch about the Washington Commanders. All right, let's discuss Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to trust with your finances, A, it's critical, and B, it can be very hard to find the right person. Well, I went through it for you. Now you don't have to. Trust me when I tell you this. From my own personal experience, it's somebody I trust with my finances is Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group. Whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, you might be a boss who's trying to get his employee benefits together. and you can't quite figure that out, well, that's another resource that Jim can help you with. I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers to Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be as well. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You can email him also at Murray, MURRAY, .jim@principal.com. That's Murray.jim@principal.